Trae Young's name continues to be mentioned in trade talks before the season begins. We're going to talk about a mock trade that sends him to the Orlando Magic, and we're going to evaluate some of the players that are in that deal and whether or not the Atlanta Hawks are even wanting to trade their young star point guard. But first, before I preface that and go over the trade, guys, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you're watching the video. 90.6% of you guys who are watching our videos are not subscribed to the channel. So make sure to join the 9.4%. We're trying to build an Orlando Magic basketball community here on YouTube, and the best and easiest way to support the channel is by subscribing. Okay, let's have a little heart-to-heart here from everybody a part of the Magic Digest family. So when we talk about some of these mock trades, we're talking about more so evaluating the players and where the organizations are, rather than just strictly this trade going down right now. In this trade, we're going to obviously break it down a little bit. We're going to talk about whether or not the Atlanta Hawks are even in the mood to trade Trae Young right now or at some point in the season or next year. And we're going to evaluate some of the Magic players that are being, mocked in this trade as well. Who are we giving up, and what do they mean for the franchise? What would we have to do to even acquire a star like Trae Young? What does the cap look like? Would we ever really want to trade these young guys potentially? I think that that's really the most important thing to keep in mind when we're talking about some of these trades, because that is obviously the most important factor in all this. Now, we're in the NBA's dead period right now. The Olympic gold medal game was just yesterday, and we've seen plenty of great basketball, but right now the basketball it's over. There's literally no more basketball until training camp, preseason, and stuff like that. So for the most part, the NBA is in its true dead period. Now, also, before we get into this trade, shout out Franz Wagner for making a second team, the All-Olympic second team. Okay. Germany played their hearts out. Okay. So let's get into the trade and see what exactly this looks like. So obviously just involving the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic, the Magic will receive Trae Young, and the Atlanta Hawks will get Cole Anthony, Anthony Black, Jet Howard, Mo Wagner, a 25 first, a 26 first round pick swap, a 27 first round pick from Orlando. That is a haul. If I've ever seen one before in my life. That's a lot of players. So let's try to break some of this down. What exactly would Trae Young mean for the organization if he were to come to the Orlando Magic? Well, I think he would provide instant offense, scoring, and would be the table setter for Paolo Banchero. When we're looking at his stats from last year, he's a guy who's averaging 25.7 points per game, 11 assists per game, and shooting about 37% from the three-point line. He pretty much checks every single box. He's obviously not the defender, the perimeter defender that the Orlando Magic have come to love and come to expect, but he checks off a lot of boxes, and he fills a lot of the need that the Orlando Magic obviously want to fix going into next year. We just saw in that series against the Cavs, there was no other scoring when Franz got cold outside of Paolo Banchero. There was no help. There was nobody there. Look, I think we can pretty much rely on Trae Young to, if he's that second or moves down to that third option, I don't think he would be behind Franz as like the scoring third option, but he might facilitate and kind of, give it up in a sense, give up the right of way to Franz at certain times. I think we can rely on him to be there pretty much 100% of the time. That's a way less asking price in a sense that the Magic would have for Trae Young than what the Atlanta Hawks ask of him each and every night. I mean, he's that number one guy, and especially since they traded DeJounte Murray. He's the cornerstone again for that franchise. Feels like the only guy that they got. So, do I think his fit with the Magic would work? Yeah, I think you would shove Jalen Suggs over to the two, and he would guard the other team's best player. And I think for the most part, you'd have a starting five of Trae Young, Jalen Suggs, Wagner, Banchero, and whoever you want to put at center. Maybe Isaac, maybe Wendell Carter Jr. And that's a pretty good core. That's a pretty good starting lineup. And Wendell Carter coming right off the bench, I think is a pretty good option. Tristan Da Silva, where does he fit? I think it works. But this is extremely risky. This is like one of the most risky trades I have really covered, I think, on this channel so far, and it really does scare me. Now, do I think that the Orlando Magic are going to end up dealing Anthony Black and Jet Howard in the same trade. I don't think that that's ever really going to be possible. Those are our two lottery picks from last year. We haven't really seen enough out of Jet Howard. He just had a great summer league, but we haven't really seen him on an NBA court. And Anthony Black at the same time, Markelle Fultz is out the door. We're trading two guards in this trade. So we need to so that vaults Gary Harris and Corey Joseph into some sort of rotation, right? What am I missing here? I don't really know if this is going to be feasible as those guys coming off the bench and being the main ball handlers. I mean, Trae Young is going to have to. This is going to be a lot on Trae Young. Now, you would kind of form a big three, like I've said, and I can't stress that enough. Like the star power that the Magic would have would be great. So I don't want to try to be cheap on the Hawks here, but this is a lot. I mean, the two lottery picks from last year and Cole Anthony, number one scorer off the bench, that's a lot. Also, another thing to keep in mind is the Mo Wagner aspect of this. Just played with Franz, obviously just got the extension, so the article does mention there is a restriction, so this wouldn't be able to happen until that deadline has passed. But if there's any way that you can avoid trading him, I don't see why you wouldn't. You want to keep him on the squad, right? Like, there's no point in trying to trade one of your star players' brothers. And I don't, if it really came down to it and they said, we're not going to do this deal, or like, let's say the Magic were completely okay with giving up all this, and the one thing that they said that they couldn't do without the Atlanta Hawks, that is Mo Wagner. Well, if you're the Orlando Magic, okay, well, fine, right? Like, we'll give up Mo Wagner. But that's not the case. This is a ton of players. I don't see why Mo Wagner really needs to be a part of this trade. I like Goga. I think Benatze can be a really good rotational piece on a playoff team, but I really like Mo Wagner. I've been extremely impressed with how he played, or how he has played in the Olympics and from last year. I think he's a goon. You need some of those guys on your roster. I wouldn't want to give him up either. And then both of the lottery picks, like I said, just that's too much. And then where do those picks fall? I think that's too risky. What if there's a year where we're a little off? We really need one of those picks. It's a lot. But going into the final paragraph of this article, which I thought was really self-aware, and it was kind of addressing the fact of how risky this kind of trade was, saying, look, it's a win-win, but it is risky for both teams. Now, the perspective from the Hawks I thought was really interesting because they mentioned a lot of those years of underachieving. They really haven't been all that competitive or vying for potentially finals positions since the Ben Simmons implosion of a handful of years ago, right? And Trae Young had his run in the playoffs. So since then, they've kind of been underachieving, stuck in the play-in, and haven't exactly really been able to get out of that funk. They made that deal for DeJounte Murray. He's been in, and now he's out. He's on the Pelicans now. He's gone, and they're really kind of still just building around Trae Young. They had to make a couple coaching moves, and there's, hasn't been really a light at the end of the tunnel for a while now for the Hawks. So I get where they're coming from, and they would have the Magic's picks. I think that's probably the most important thing. Maybe Anthony Black and Jet Howard turn into something, but Cole Anthony and Mo Wagner are probably closer to their peak than they are to their worst. So you're really relying on the young guys in this trade if you're the Atlanta Hawks, and the picks that you're getting. Now, I don't know how high those are even going to, or how low I should say, those picks are going to be, right? 1, 2, 3. I guess that would be high, right? But still, they're not going to be, hopefully, lottery picks, right? And then I believe the Denver pick is also a top 5 protected. So that's going to the Orlando Magic unless, barring a massacre. So right now I don't really see the Hawks really making away with a ton here. But if they wanted to trade Trae Young, maybe they wait until after this season. I think this is a deal that's a next summer thing. And then for the Orlando Magic, I think that this is just too much. The asking price is just going to be too much, but it does fix a lot of their issues. Now, I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think that the Atlanta Hawks are even in the mood to trade Trae Young within the next year or so? Maybe, but it seems like he's always thrown around. That's a name that you always see. Get thrown in some mock trades. So we'll have to kind of see. I think I could have bought this a little bit more if DeJounte Murray was still on the roster, was still in the Atlanta Hawks, and it was 3 months ago. But that's just not the case. Also, Magic fans, let me know about what you think of both of those lottery picks being in this trade. I don't see us trading both of them. I like Tristan da Silva coming into the fold, but he had a great summer league. But we haven't seen any NBA basketball of him either. Well, how good he can be remains to be seen, right? You don't want to give up those 2 lottery picks just yet. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you've subscribed by now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And next time I see you guys, it will be with more Orlando Magic basketball content.